right. Well, welcome to this week's edition of Capital Confidential. We're happy to bring along Representative John Rosenthal. Representative Rosenthal, tell us what you're up to.
Good morning. So I'm John Rosenthal. I represent House District 135, which is Northwest Harris County. I'm right off of 290, and I have addresses that are Katy, Cypress, and Houston. What am I up to? I'm really glad to be at home in Houston right now. That's what I'm up to. But we've got a lot going on in the Texas House, and you want to talk about the stuff that's really important and of the moment right now is the fight for vouchers.
Let me pause you. So vouchers, I mean, all we've heard is it's going to happen, but it depends
It's so here's what I'm going to start with. It is not a done deal. Anybody saying that is just letting the governor play the media like they always do. He said he had it locked up last time, and we had four special sessions, four called sessions. He still could not get it done. So here's the deal. They've got a bill authored with 75 co-authors. That means if everybody who has signed up votes for it, they'll have 76 votes and it would pass. Some of them are soft on that. And I can just tell you in personal conversations, and from what I hear, there's at least 3 or 4 of them who are feeling very iffy about this. And I don't know if you've been watching in the news, but the author of the bill, along with some of those conservative Republicans in rural areas who are saying they're voting for it, are being confronted in their town halls with many angry constituents. And so there was one posted last night where Cody Harris, who I'm actually very friendly with, and Brad Buckley, and these are two. Brad's a classmate of mine, and he's the chair of the education committee, and then Cody is on the speaker's team, and I don't know if he's on the education committee or not, but they were in Palestine, Texas, getting an earful from their teachers and constituents saying that they don't want vouchers. So basically, all we got to do is convince 2 Republicans to side with their communities and oppose the vouchers, and we may be able to kill this thing on votes. So anyone who tells you it's a done deal, just tell them to call their reps, especially in the rural areas, and make sure that they vote with the people instead of the governor.
Well, really, the billionaires. And by the way, something that y'all may know about, and we've tried to put out the word, but we're working with the Rural Caucus, and actually we have volunteers from Harris County Democratic Party. And if you're on this or watching this later and you want to get involved, please call the party, who are actually reaching out to Democrats in rural districts to do just that, to make sure they show up, to make sure they call. And the idea is that we're touching those people, and we've been doing it now for about a week and a half with phone banking to get that kind of connection from their own constituencies. And I'm guessing, do you think that helps?
Yes. So here's the thing: is that especially when people from our districts call our offices, whether the rep actually does what you want or not, it makes a difference, and they notice. So I'll get on a given day in the house.texas.gov email box with my name on it, I'll get 100 to 200 messages a day. Most of those are automated chain mails. We record them all, but what makes a difference is we in the system that we use to record, and this is a system that all the reps have, we can tell the difference between the people who are contacting us from our district and people who are contacting us from New Hampshire or the Panhandle or whatever it is. So it makes a difference especially when you have the people from the districts call. And here's the thing: these new members that the governor and his billionaire friends helped get in through the Republican primaries, those primary elections weren't about vouchers, y'all. They were accusing the reps of being soft on border policy and being dinos and whatever other MAGA talking points they had. They did not wage a war on vouchers. And so the reps who even won ostensibly for that purpose also recognize that that's not what their constituents want.
Yeah,
Once
but
again,
didn't they sign a blood oath to get all that money from the billionaires? You said it nicely. I tend to
yeah,
think
I don't
the
know about that. I don't sign no blood oaths for nobody. Like if people don't like what I have to say, they can vote me out and it's cool. I'm ready for a six-figure raise anytime soon. But the point is it's super possible. All we have to do is flip a couple of votes and this thing could be defeated on votes. And whether that happens or not, I promise you Democrats are in the House to fight, and we will use all the procedural tools. We'll try to kill that legislation. uh, with all the procedural tools, we'll gum it up. We'll make it difficult for them. That is going to be a knockdown, drag out fight for Democrats. And
well, there's
I'm
two
ready
things I
for
want to, by
it.
the
We
way,
all are.
everybody, the chat, this is an opportunity. If you have questions, put them out there, and we'll get them answered. That's kind of part of the fun of this. The other part is you're kind enough to sponsor a bill that I think is important. There's a couple what I would call priority bills from Harris County Democratic Party. Can you tell us about that bill and where it's at?
So I believe the one that we're carrying for you is just to raise the basic allotment to deal with inflation. And there are actually a number of bills along these lines, but it's just so important. And it's not just messaging, it's the fact that this is part of the same movement to undermine public education in Texas and the 5 million or so Texas school children that rely on those public schools for an education. They've just been underfunded historically. You know, even when we got the big bump in education funding when I came in as a freshman in 2019, it still was not enough to bring us out of the bottom 10% in the country. And we're like, I don't remember if we're 48th or 49th in the union and what we spend per pupil in public education funding, but it's going to take, I believe, $1,300 increase on the basic allotment is the fundamental building block for that determines how much a school district gets in state funding, and it's per student funding. So we need to increase from, I think it's 6180, and we need to increase it like $1,300 a student just to account for inflation over the last 4 years. And what the Republicans on their big fancy public education package that will put billions of dollars into schools, but it only increases the basic allotment like $200.
Well,
So
and that's why this bill is. I mean, you're right. This, by the way, heads up, I was wrong. It's not the chat. I should know this because we've been doing this for a little while now. It's the Q&A. So if you want to put something out there to get answered, you go into the Q&A function, and that'll pop up there, and we'll get it answered. But the idea being that they claim they're not defunding the schools, but if they don't take into account inflation, that's exactly what they've been doing, and this is just to bring it up there. So what's the odds on this one? A very common sense, why are you starving our schools bill, Representative Rosenthal?
So I am optimistic about this sort of thing. So whether it's my bill or something or someone else that is carrying legislation to do the right thing, there is money, what we say, parked in the budget to make a massive, like a $9 billion infusion into public schools, and we just need to make sure that money goes to to teachers and students. It ends up really truly in the classroom. So without burdening our schools with extra mandates and what have you. We need to focus on raising the basic allotment, so the fundamental building block, and then also the safety allotment is a piece of that funding that's dedicated to school safety, which is obviously another critical issue for us in Texas. And because there's money already set aside in the budget for it, it's totally doable, and all we have to do is have the debate about how to appropriate that money where it gets assigned.
So is that something where, is the bill filed yet? Because I was going to share it with it on there.
I think that we were working on language. And they're honestly they're gummed up at the council. So the legislative council is the in-house administrative body that actually writes the language, and so I can send them what I want. I could literally write on a napkin with a crayon, and they'll come back with legal language. But because of the thousands and thousands of bills and all that they're trying to process, it's kind of gummed up right now. They even moved up the deadline to submit, the request. So we've got it on request. It's in draft now, but I don't have a bill number yet.
Got it. All right. We have a question about SB 26, the teacher raises. The HISD superintendent is saying that the retention raises are given to schools and then they can distribute it however they want. It is difficult to maintain teacher retention when something like that happens, and it turns out to be a slap in the face. Are you familiar with that particular bill and what's going on there?
I'm not. SB is a Senate bill.
Right.
So I can't say that I've actually seen it myself yet. Although I'm happy to do that. But this stuff is no secret, y'all. Like, the governor convenes a task force on how to retain teachers. I'm a product of industry with 30 years of experience, and I can tell you how to retain talent. You treat them with respect and you pay them appropriately, and you provide opportunities for their personal growth and advancement, and you do stuff like that, and people stay. You treat them like crap and you underpay them, and you throw all kinds of mandates on them to put pressure on them, so they're walking around with a target on their front and a target on their back at the same time, and they quit. So it's not a secret. We just need to we need to help them out, and once again, increasing the basic allotment will do that, because the legislation that we passed in 2019 assigns a slice of that basic allotment to teacher pay. And so if we increase the basic allotment, that will by statute also increase teachers pay.
So in terms, I know committees start on Wednesday. I actually think I'm going to be up there later in the afternoon. What's the significance of that, and explain that process a little bit?
So my first committee meeting is going to be on Monday. So I'm on the Energy Resources Committee and the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, which also deals with how the state government interacts with Harris County and the city of Houston. So I thought that both of those would be very pertinent relative to my area and my experience. That for those who don't know me, I'm actually an oil field engineer sorry.
Are you still the only engineer in the legislature, or has somebody joined you?
I'm the only mechanical engineer in the
Only the
legislature.
ME.
And there's a civil engineer named Dennis Paul from Clear Lake. And now we've got a new oil industry engineer named Denise Villalobos. I think she's a chemical engineer from the Corpus Christi area. And while she's a Republican, she seems to be one of the more thoughtful variety and not one of the bomb throwers. But the process is, it seems to be starting, a little late, although the truth is we'll be hearing bills in accordance with the Constitution, which says at 60 days is when you can start hearing things that are not governor's emergency items. So all the people making all the noise about that, it's mostly just noise. So anyway, the way the process works is all the bills that get filed, anything I file or anybody else, first reading is to refer it to a committee where it will be heard. If it gets a hearing in a committee, that's where we'll hear from witnesses, debate the pros and cons of the bill. If after all that the majority of the committee views it favorably and we vote it out, then it can be sent over to the full House to vie for a place on a House calendar and end up going to the full House. So the committee is the first step in getting a bill passed. So we're just organizing them and starting to have hearings and meetings. The committees on appropriations, the ones that deal with the budget, they have already started, and they start early, and they go like 7 in the morning till 7 at night, pretty much every day until they get through all the stuff. But the rest of us, ag and livestock, county affairs, intergovernmental, energy resources, natural resources, criminal, jurisprudence, justice and family issues, all those committees are just getting up and going right now.
So those committees, hearings, they usually start usually in the afternoon, generally, except I guess appropriations.
So it depends. The way that they do it is with the whatever it is it 30 or 40 substantive permanent committees? They try to schedule them so that there are the fewest, try to minimize the number of conflicts. So if I'm on 2 or 3 committees, if any of those committees meet at the same time, it's very difficult for me to be in both meetings at the same
You
time.
can't do that.
We're not quite at that stage in cloning technology yet, but
Well,
so
it's probably good when you talk about all the
early,
wackadoodle.
some meet later. So for example, my energy resources committee is meeting on Mondays at 10 a.m. And I live right off of 290, so I can leave early Monday morning and be at the Capitol on time. And then the intergovernmental affairs one starts Tuesday at 8 a.m. So bright and early on Tuesday mornings. I'm also the vice chair of the redistricting committee.
Really?
We don't know when that's going to meet, but the new powers that have been granted to the vice chair so that I can put a bill on the calendar to make sure it gets heard, where it used to be only the chairman or chairperson of a committee would determine what bills get heard. Now the vice chairs can call
That's new this session.
that's new this session. And I can invite testimony. And the difference between you just deciding to, you, the public, deciding to come interact with us and come testify in a hearing or speak to a committee is you'll be speaking on a bill or whatever. And the chair will grant whatever time period is. Sometimes it depends on the number of people who sign up, but you'll come to the Capitol, spend maybe all day waiting for your turn to have 60 or 120 seconds to speak, unless you're invited testimony, and then you get to go first, and you get to go as long as you want,
That's a big deal.
and present materials and stuff like that. So if I'm going to vice chair redistricting, I will do my best to make sure that we hear a bill to end gerrymandering in Texas, right? So we'll hear the bill and then we'll invite a bunch of experts to come talk about why it's good, how it works in other states and all that stuff. We could have press in the room, like we could make a whole big deal out of this, and that is totally my intent. So check back in with me in the following weeks and we'll see if we can. I've already found a couple of such bills that have been filed. By Rafael Chia, by Senator Judah Farini, and some others. So we will hear a bill to establish nonpartisan redistricting commissions in the state of Texas.
That would be a game changer, that's for sure. And that's why the Republicans are going to fight so hard against it. But
that's right.
It makes so much common sense that as opposed to representatives picking their voters pick their representatives, which is an idea that we've had in America for a little while at least.
It's a novel concept, representative democracy. How do you like it?
Well, this thing you mentioned about vice chair. I mean, I remember on opening day we had our team up there, and there were hundreds of folks with red shirts that said "No Democrat chairs." Is this kind of a workaround in a way?
That's the deal. So this is a masterful piece of negotiating by the Democrats with the Republicans. Coming the group that we were trying to support. This is the whole reason for the dynamic behind the speaker's race, y'all. And if you want to know the Capitol Confidential view, the way it went down was we all knew, the Republicans and Democrats alike knew that there's tremendous public pressure to end the practice of having a semblance of power sharing with Democrats chairing certain substantive permanent committees. And so given that for the survival of the speaker, whoever it was going to be, that we wanted to help us to put it, not just help us with our ability to influence what happens, but the power sharing and to help keep the person in the chair without being recalled or something like that was to work it so that we could fulfill their request and end the practice of having Democrats chair the permanent standing committees. But they made Democrats vice chairs of all of those committees, and they give us new authority and influence. So that's a
game changer. That's really a game changer.
It's a game changer. And so
who needs to be a stinking chair?
if you'll forgive me for putting it like this, some of the MAGA right wingers are extremely upset, and I have had to get whole new containers for magateers because they're on the microphones every day. And while I used to just drink them with my coffee in the morning, now we're going to use them to fill swimming pools and oil drums and stuff because
Wow. Well, that
they
was
are
I'm
so mad.
yeah.
And I guess the classic thing is be careful what you wish for, right?
Right. Right. Well, that will be important. So, by the way, I want to tell everybody we have 6 more minutes. So, if you have a question or questions, get them up there now, so we have a chance before we stop at 10:30. Big issue for you, obviously, is redistricting, education, the vouchers. What else do you think, looking ahead, do you think is going to be, for lack of a better word, crutch points or things that might be an opportunity pickup for folks
So
that kind of care about
there
this?
are a couple of things. There are a couple of things that are going to be important to all of the people in Texas that are not necessarily going to be fought out on partisan lines. Okay, and those are the areas where we can really build coalitions to work for the people. So the first one up, one of the things that's going to be a pressure point or a point of emphasis during the session is affordable housing and how we can make housing more affordable. People are in debates about that now. There are numerous bills about, lower median or average median or whatever it is. There's going to be a number of efforts around affordable housing, which we all desperately want. And the Republicans need it in their rural areas. We need it in our cities. Austin is about the worst in the state as far as supply of affordable housing goes. So that's one. Another one is going to be the push for gaming in Texas. And while we're close to a tipping point, it's going to require a constitutional amendment to make it happen. And so for these destination resorts is what they're talking about building, the Las Vegas style fancy hotel gaming resorts I could see having one like Seabrook, Galveston. We could support one downtown Houston. They're talking about Dallas and San Antonio. So a limited number of licenses for these things. And because it's going to require a constitutional amendment, Republicans can't do that all by themselves. They need Democrats. And so for me to be on board with that, we need to make sure those jobs are good paying jobs with benefits and the ability to join a union is top on my list for making sure that we have that opportunity if we're going to enact a new multi-billion-dollar industry in Texas. So those two. And then I'm going to make a plug for my personal little bill to end child marriage in Texas. So that's
Oh my.
yeah. So who knew it was a thing, but it's actually a loop. There's a loophole in the law that allows for legalized human trafficking, families
Hmm.
their own little girls by
Hmm.
emancipating them and basically selling them off to middle-aged wealthy men. So
Hmm.
that's one I'm hoping to move, and I've got some support from some Republicans. So that's my little thing. Oh, and the Office of Community Violence Intervention and Prevention to go after the root causes of community violence in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and do that as a statewide program. So those are my sort of personal things.
Well, which actually, Mr. July has a really good question that kind of, I guess, goes in on geez, I didn't realize about this child marriage issue, but with this environment where you have the MAGA wackadoodles and the quote traditional Republicans, both of them, it sounds like, that are in the legislature, there may be more than two. How do you position yourselves to, win on these issues? For example, child marriage, it seems like that would be one that, you know, I guess there's probably six guys in some part of town that are for it, but it doesn't seem like that would be something that a lot of at least alleged family values folks would be opposed to. So how do you work with those folks, or how do you position yourselves is the
So
question.
that's the thing, though. You build the coalitions where you can. So, like on the gambling issue, we might be working with the moderates who are going to consider it an economic development issue in Texas because all these um, all these dollars, all these recreation dollars go out of state. Like my wife and her sisters like to drive to Louisiana to go gambling, so they
It's
could.
funny you say that because my wife, I have this concern if they open casinos in Galveston, I'll come home one day, we'll have no furniture. But
Yeah. It could still be the case. They would just spend that money in Louisiana instead of in Galveston. So, you want to have some appropriate regulation around it. Then for the child marriage thing, there's that's a really interesting thing. So there's some, and it's not just Democrats or Republicans, but the whole thing about the Romeo Juliet affair where kids want to get married because somebody got pregnant and girl is, let's say the young lady is 16 and the boy is 18, and so that's not what I'm trying to stop. So we'll work with the people that we can, because there are plenty of Republicans who see this as a loophole that helps human trafficking, and so you just have to frame things correctly. And so that's another push that we should always be making. Human trafficking is prolific. Houston is a hotspot. The suburban west side where I live, they're all over out here. It's unbelievably prolific. So
Wow. How did you learn about that?
there are a number of groups, but there are some groups doing really good work, and these are NGOs, nonprofit type groups, non-government organizations who are trying to do what they can to help liberate these young girls. And there's so many layers to this, but I learned about it through local activists, and I didn't even know that the little massage parlor literally half a mile from my house and the strip center with the pho noodle place where I go and get noodles, a couple times a week, um, is a human trafficking spot, like right in my neighborhood. And all of y'all probably see these things, but if you see the little foot massage or massage parlors with blacked out windows and a number you call to get in, those are just brothels. And they traffic in young girls as young as 11 to 12 years old. A lot of times undocumented immigrants are roped into this, and they are conscripted by their fear of being deported, and then they end up coerced in a life of illegal prostitution where their life expectancy from 12 or 13 years old is like 7 years. They don't even get to be drinking age before they are used up and killed. So this is just a massive problem that we should do whatever we can to go after. It proliferates in Texas worse than most other states. So the permissive business structures that allow it need to be regulated.
Well, we're closing out, but there's one last question from Ruth Kravitz, and you may or may not know this is part of my job
I happen to love Ruth Kravitz, and so it's probably a question about education.
well, no.
It's not.
It's on the 11 Republicans who did not sign off on HB3, are some of those flippable, and and you may not know this, where are some flippable House seats in the Houston area that you think of, or I guess maybe that's an offline conversation at
So
this.
it
Go
might
ahead.
be, you want to, Ruth and everybody, you want to look at the Republicans who were on the Rainey Amendment last session and then have their names on this HB3 now. So those are the ones who have flipped from opposing vouchers to at least signing on to a voucher bill. And again, just because they put their name on that co-author sheet does not mean they're going to vote for it. So I would go after them. I hate to throw out names that I'm not certain about. I know that Keith Bell, who's not actually Houston area, but he's a former school board president that opposed vouchers before, successfully prevailed in a primary that was propped up by the governor. And so why he would get on it now, I don't know. Maybe he's trying to avoid another primary, but I think they should be more afraid of their constituents than the governor. So I'll do a little research on that. I'm sorry I'm not prepared with the actual names of people who may have flipped, but I would stay with the folks who have been with us to support public education in the past, and local reps, local Republicans like um, Charles Cunningham, Sam Harless, and Lacey Hall, all kind of north and central, and were supportive of public education in the past, are good folks to reach out to.
Perfect. Well, Representative, thank you for taking the time this Saturday morning. This will be up on YouTube. You might get some questions out of it, but appreciate you taking the time to to visit with the folks at Harris County who are following what you're doing and share what you're doing.
More than happy to do it. Anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm easy to find. You could post up my email address, find me on social media. I answer questions. And if you come to the Capitol, I'll host you in the office. Like, we are a welcoming space for people that come to visit or advocate or whatever.
Perfect. Thank you very much and have a great Saturday. Take care, y'all. We got a lot of stuff going. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you.